Episode 8 of The Judge from Hell starts with the aftermath of finding blood in the alleyway. The villa residents discuss this and decide they should all pray together for So-young's safety. Mando is all for it, but Bittner predictably isn't, and Mija is standoff too, mostly because of Bittner's involvement here. The next day, the police are briefed and Daeon's team are livid when they find out they're being sidelined. Given they can't be impartial here, given their emotional state, the chief has decided they'll focus on other things. Daeon tries to stay optimistic, determined to figure this out. He heads over to see Dahui that night, who is a complete mess, and he hugs her tightly, comforting her. Whilst there, Daeon receives a copy of the serial killer details that So-young is holding onto. We know that she was shielding him from this case, but now it's time to take responsibility and figure this out, for So-young's sake. With the envelope in hand, Daeon tries to compose himself outside. When he heads in after a long night, he finds Bittner, but he's understandably not his usual quippy self. Bittner is surprisingly concerned and contemplates using the mirror to check So-young's whereabouts. She talks herself out of this though, and instead focuses with Daeon on the KO food case we looked at last episode. Lies are spreading about Mr. Won, claiming that he was a gambler and used the strike as a way of extorting money to pay off his debts. Of course, we know all of this is just malicious slander, and Daeon finds a witness that's willing to testify against the CEO. This witness, Jong-soo, shows up an hour later than expected in court and is very clearly being paid off as he runs with a gambling story. Daeon follows him outside after, but the man is hysterical, constantly apologising and very clearly rattled. Bittner takes him at face value, and even speaking to Jae-gol's family at dinner, who talk about fabricating evidence and how everyone is vulnerable to money. At the store that night, Arong speaks to Bittner and reveals that she's found the sole survivor to serial killer Jae. This is, of course, Daeon. All of this is a ploy from our cunning demon to try and get Bittner to show emotion, but for now she manages to keep a steady poker face in front of Arong. She does see Daeon later that night though, who tells her to do her best when it comes to the sentencing for the CEO's case. We know exactly what Bittner's game is here though, when she gives him 1 year in prison, 2 years of probation and 40 years of community service. When the family plead of her, Bittner is actually a little rattled, but she holds her own when she leaves and speaks to Chief Na at the station. Of course, there are more malicious comments spreading online and plenty of calls coming into her office after this sentencing, but she's not standing for any of it. After the stress of everything and having backed out of her chemotherapy, Yu-gi-young, Mr. Won's daughter remember, is brought into hospital. The doctor warns that Mrs. Won should prepare for the worst as she's in a rough way. However, Yu-gi-young inexplicably wakes up and her vitals suddenly start getting better. The doctor chalks this up to a miracle and even points out that someone is sponsoring her treatment too, so she doesn't have to worry about the cost. That person is remaining anonymous for now, but we soon learn it's actually the Hell cleanup crew. That night, Wonjung receives a call as Bittner starts her roulette wheel with hellfire and brimstone for our evil CEO. Now it's the violent crimes' job to keep an eye on Wonjung, but he gives the officers a slip after receiving a call from Miguel mocking him, goading him to meet at an amusement park alone. Daeon knows what's going on and confronts Bittner as she leaves her apartment. He knows she's heading off to kill Wonjung and pleads with her not to. He really doesn't want to arrest her but promises he will if she continues down this road. Bittner turns it around though and brings up the serial killer who slaughtered his family. The ugly truth is that this killer is not going back on trial, so she wants him to help. He refuses, naturally, and he hugs her before they part ways. Bittner has her fun with Wonjung, even summoning Hellbeast to chase him through the park. Eventually, she beats him to the point of submission in a Ferris wheel and stabs him with her Hellblade. The usual brand is marked on his forehead and she delights in another soul heading off to hell. Unfortunately, what she didn't bank on was Daeon happening to record the whole thing. He actually put a tracker on her during that hug earlier on and now has evidence of her stabbing and killing Wonjung. Bittner is livid and demands the phone. Instead, he throws pocket sand, it's sulfur powder which apparently freezes demonic powers for several hours, and he ends up arresting her. One of the officers at the station, Yun-seop, rings through though, interrupting everything as it turns out they found So-young. Daeon races off after leaving Bittner tied to the Ferris wheel and finds a gnarly crime scene with So-young very much dead. There's also the mark of the killer next to her too, a big J on the floor. This is not dissimilar to the cases in the past and specifically that of Daeon's family murder. So-young was actually first to the scene back then and found Daeon cowering in his room. She helped him outside, promising to become a great detective and do whatever she can to make this person pay for what they've done. Back in the present, Bittner breaks free from her binds and finds herself face to face with Daeon again, who returns. He slams his phone on the ground and smashes it to pieces. After seeing So-young killed by the serial killer, he's livid. Blood staining his fingers, he hands it over to Bittner. shaking, and she effortlessly smashes it to bits. He wants her to find and kill Jay, determined to rip him to shreds. He wants to help her, but she refuses, not wanting to send him to hell. However, Dayon doesn't care. In fact, he promises to let her kill him herself after the deed. She smiles and agrees, but as Bittner walks away, she suddenly starts crying. Our Justicia is shocked and turns towards Dayon, who sees the tears for himself. This episode in particular is fascinating in the way it evolves both Dayon and Bittner's characters. The former has always been steadfast in its desire to do right by the law and try people justly in a court of law. However, what Judge from Hell is showing, and similarly Devil Judge did this a bit too, is mock how unjust the system is, especially for those who know how to play the court system or can pay off witnesses, the jury or officials at the top. We even hear this over at J-Goals, where the rich are discussing how everyone is vulnerable to money and those who aren't are just squashed by the system. However, by the end we see Dayon has snapped. He wants this serial killer found no matter what, and Bittner can very obviously sense that pain herself, hence why she's so torn up over hearing Dayon act this way. Seeing her tears at the end confirm that she's very much going to be the catalyst for her own downfall and could well struggle to kill Dayon after finding serial killer Jay and offing him. But then we also have that immortality trinket, don't we? Along with the Hell hierarchy that was discussed several episodes back. Especially if that group and dedicating time to discuss this is anything to go by, this could become a factor in the episodes ahead. However, everything is geared up nicely here for next week's double bill, which promises to be a very tense and emotional affair, especially if that preview, which is full of spoilers of course, so please avoid it if you don't want that, is anything to go by. Until then, thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.